So you've got a quiz on the platform, but you're a little confused about how the scoring works and how to make the quiz work the way that you need it to. So in this video, I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough of how the scoring works and how we can make this quiz work for you. Let's dive right in. So here's our quiz. Let's start by diving into the questions themselves. In order to modify a question's scoring, select the question, and then on the right-hand side, when you scroll down to the options section, this is where we are going to add our scores for our questions. You can add points for each answer for the question, depending on if it's multiple choice, checkboxes, or whatever you have set up for your quiz. Now, if you don't have any categories created, as we have here, you're only going to see overall. And when you select overall and then add a score, this will now be the score that's added to the overall score if they select this answer. Typically, if you have multiple choices, in this case, we have our answers energized, okay, and bad. We'll add 10 for energized. We'll set okay at 5, and then we'll select bad as 1 to give us that tiering system for our scores. Now, your first question is probably, how do we know what these are adding up to? In the end, whenever our scores are calculated, what the quiz will do is it will take all of the scores together and then divide them by 100 in order to create a percentage-based score. So even if we set energized to 75 and okay to 50, and all of our total scores add up to over 100, they'll be divided by 100 and it'll come out to the right percentage if that's the way that we want our score to display. Just hang with me and I'll show you how that works. So for this case, let's say this is how we've got it set up. Now, for our other questions, like multiple choice, then these will add together. So if we have our first answer set to 5 and our second answer set to 3, if a user selects both of those, then it'll add 5 plus 3, and that'll be the total result that they get from this. And again, it'll just be added to the overall score. Now, when we're talking about our scoring, you can see all of your scoring screens when you scroll down and go to the result template. When you click edit, here is where we can see what our quiz score is going to look like. Now in this section, we can customize different sections by selecting them. So to manage the scoring itself, let's go ahead and click the overall score section. Now, when we just have overall score and no categories, this is what it's going to look like. We can set up sets of text to be displayed whenever they are scored as low, medium, or high. And if we scroll down to score settings, we can manage the type of score that we're doing. So as I said earlier, if we do percentage, then it'll take the total and divide it by 100. Or we can also do actual score, so it'll give them just the points. So whatever points you have dedicated within your questions, that's what it'll show here. And then you can also select out of 10. It'll show you how many you're actually getting right. And then again, this is similar to the percentage, just rather than dividing by 100, it divides it by 10. So that way it gives them a rating on that scale and then displays it here. Now let's talk about categories. In order to set up categories, we can go to Manage Categories at the top left here. And when we click this, we can add categories. Now we currently only have one category for overall. That's just one overall score. But let's go ahead for this personal quiz. Let's make a health category. Let's make a wealth category. And let's add a relationships category. Just like that, we now have 3 categories set up with our overall category for this quiz. And when we go to any of our questions, for example, this financial question, whenever we are designating our scores, we can select overall, or we can select one of the categories here. Now, let's say, for example, since this is a financial question, we're going to designate each answer to the wealth category. Then we're going to give them a score based on that category, like this. Now what's going to happen is whenever they answer according to these questions in our final score sheet at the end of the quiz, they'll see what they've scored in that category underneath the overall score. Each category is only creating the score from questions that have been assigned that category. So if you're a little bit confused about having some questions adding to different scores and not the overall score, just make sure you're going through your questions and assigning those categories in the right-hand side, and make sure that you're giving them the correct category for each one of the answers and giving them these according scores. Additionally, these will be added to the overall score. So if you have a question where you've selected categories, these will be added to the category as well as the overall score. So if they score very high in the wealth one, very low in relationships and health, then these will all contribute to the overall score, and the overall score essentially becomes an average of these 3 scores. Now you can also modify how these scores are scored by selecting the category score element, and you'll see that it's selected right here. And then scrolling down and then under score settings, this is where we can again select percentage, actual score, or out of 10. And this does the same sort of math calculations as it would do for the overall score. Now let's talk about the ranges, low, medium, and high, and what it means for the overall score and the category scores. So whenever we have selected the category score element, whenever we add a piece of text for low, medium, or high, this is going to be the text that's displayed if they score in those categories. So for example, whenever they score low, it'll display this message. Whenever they score medium, it'll just be displayed this one, and you can see this on the right-hand side. You can see it's updated in the medium sections and not the high section. And then in high, then it will update just like that. Now, if you're curious about those score tiers themselves and how you can customize that, all you have to do is go to the overall score element, and then under score tiers, we can change exactly what these different levels are. So we can change low to say something else, medium and high, and then we can change what percentage they are getting in order to sort them into these categories. So right now, if they get from 0 to 39, it's low. If they get 40 to 79, it's medium. And if they get 80 to 100, then it's high. And you can customize these to whatever you want. So that way it reflects accordingly. You can also add more tiers with separate colors in order to give additional labels to your scoring. So some best practices whenever you are using quizzes. First, make sure you're going through each one of your questions and deciding what category they're going to be added to depending on the type of question that you're asking. For example, this question we're asking, how do you feel when you wake up most mornings? So this would probably be going into the category of health. This question, we're talking about what are your favorite hobbies? We can designate different answers for different categories as well if we want to do that. So we can put running into health, and we could put eating pizza into health, but we could put maybe reading books into wealth or relationships. So first, make sure you go through those categories and understand how many points you're adding depending on the scores and the categories that they're assigned to. Make sure you've customized each one of the low, medium, and high sections of copy, because this is what will be displayed depending on what they've scored. For example, here, make sure you have edited this text to reflect what they should see if they score low, medium, or high. Make sure you go through the score tiers section, so is sorting them correctly, and do the same for the category scores. Remember, whatever you put for low will be displayed on every low score for the categories. So if you get low in, let's say, 2 different sections, or medium in 2 different sections, as you can see here, it is displaying the exact same thing in both of those categories. Third, try and customize the footer and add a call to action here that sends them maybe to a funnel or to book a call based on the type of quiz that you're running. And remember, if you're ever getting confused about your quiz whenever you're answering questions that should be contributing to one category, but you don't see the score going up, just make sure to double check that each one of the answers are assigned to the category that you want the score to be added to. And of course, keep in mind that it'll be added to that category as well as the overall total. I hope I was able to answer some questions, and I hope you found this helpful, and thank you for watching.